Everyone memorized it.
Yeah, we're live.
Okay, good afternoon. Today is Thursday, May 9th. 24, this is a joint meeting again of Senate Natural Resources and Energy with Senate Economic Development. We've been looking at a proposal of amendment on H687 that it's on its way back to us from the House and we did a little walkthrough of most of it this morning. Now we're gonna continue on two ways. One, Mr. Gray wasn't available. We'll finish the walkthrough of only what we didn't get through. But shared, in particular shared interest of these two committees was some of the Act 250 and municipal language. So I had in the note, the email I sent out to everyone, I said it will be helpful to all of us if anyone has proposals of amendment. It has got to be used to writing, so we can all see the same things, same time, same place, and we can post them, so people outside the room can follow. Senator Ramsdale has happily gone ahead and done just that. So there's always. So how about, why don't we before we jump into the amendment,
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone else had proposals when they wanted to bring it forward. Doesn't mean we can't talk about other stuff, but just
Helpful to look at language.
but hopefully also look at the words. Okay, so wait, please.
Oh, me, I thought you did, I thought you.
Well, you might want to say what you were thinking of.
Sure.
And have not.
Yeah. Well, Joe Baker of Rutland, who was in his last 2 years, when I was in my first 2 years, always said, have something extra in your pocket. So Senator Bray asked that if I were to make proposals or anyone were to make proposals, that we have the language ready. So I apologize to my committee, I tried to find people when I could. But that was a long debate and that was fully pieced out. And I have 5 copies, I think. Maybe it's what Macaulay made for me, so people can share for now.
You two can share.
Hey, Mark, we get to share a copy. Look at that. Ellen, did you want a paper copy? I'm very happy. Okay, so I have 2 in case there's something you can't. So.
And this is from Ellen, and this is.
This is from Keisha.
Okay.
I had just said, again, the idea of instead of, because we're really trying to move right along, that rather than have a high level of discussion and then wonder about what we might do, if it will take us one step further ahead, if someone proposes try to fix or improve or enhance something, and then we can look at it in black and white. So thank you for doing that.
And I guess, I don't know if, many of us around here are on finance, so I don't think I'm speaking out of turn to say that Senate Finance was already preparing not to concur based on the tax proposals. So, these are small things that I'd like to put on the table for consideration. I probably wouldn't even put them on unless we were really concerned, and I think we're concerned as a housing committee about the housing policy implications of the property transfer tax proposal.
Okay, I'm sorry, Dan. Other thing though, Senator Hinsdale has gone ahead and that's really helpful, but I also just want to make sure that if you're reading, in the next 3 hours and you're or talking to somebody, you have concerns that aren't in this, feel free to bring those back up and ideally maybe bring them back up in the form of further written words that we could examine. Thank you. Right.
Great. Ellen, you'll have to remind me what the first strikeout I did was. Cause my brain is on the laptop.
Ellen Tchaikovsky, the Office of Legislative Counsel, the first instance of amendment strikes the requirement for jurisdictional opinion on the housing exemption.
So this is my desire to go back to what we asked, that make jurisdictional opinions optional. I think I would leave it at that. I did also talk to Senator Gray about if people were willing to do optional, could we push back out the dates of the exemptions, but Ellen mentioned that in her conversation with the House, more so than when we were talking about it. It was made more clear that it's much easier in statute to push out sunsets rather than to move them back. So. You know, we can keep looking at those in future years, but really, you know, so much of what we thought was really just. You know, earnestly positive about JOs can be really limiting or delaying to a project.
Honestly, I don't know if it's possible for developers have someone wait and ask for a JO as opposed to direct them the way. I mean, the whole point of before, there were two things, right? It was a way for the NRB to keep track of who was using the exemption and track what kind of housing we were getting, sort of a way of inventory. Something like Bill did. And then the other thing was that it was a way of memorializing to a record that yes. Because what might seem obvious now might not seem obvious in 7 years or 17 years.
And I think that's still up to the developer. You know, that they can get it if it gives them comfort in the project, but requiring it kind of adds a new opportunity for someone to come in and appeal and delay on a short timeline. The second instance of amendment and, oh, sorry.
I did just wanna point out, cause I just told the House this, the more complicated the exemption. Especially with these new categories you're creating, the more likely it is that it's going to need a jurisdictional opinion regardless, because especially with the radius, and now you're adding. You know, the sewer, water or soils, there are complicated pieces of figuring out if you're part of the exemption.
I still like it optional. I think, you know, there are just folks who will do that and go back under the threshold and build a project that's left as. Do you wanna explain the second? Do you want me to, I don't wanna. I think it's good if you do the like lawyerly thing. Okay.
Yeah, so may I just say, that as we go through these, ones that are just citations, like Ann and I just looked up, 25A. It's just a citation, so you need to talk about these citations.
Yeah,
that
right.
you're referring to.
Yeah, this is.
Which is always a challenge for those of us who don't know this
Yes.
code. Like you.
I mean, I think that, yeah, it's, we're giving Ellen grace because I answered it like 20 minutes ago, so.
I did it correctly though, like it's.
Yeah, it's good, but that's what this is what would appear, so it's, people can write little notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
That's all, that's, we're just kind of.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
So I just wanna understand the process here because I wanna understand the ability to ask questions and if. It seems like we are in a conversation that we. Have been given a proposal by Senator Ron Hinsdale, we had. In my understanding, concurred with the House. On a few things earlier in the day that we didn't concur officially, but it seemed like there's general agreement.
Yeah,
So are we voting on this as an amendment that we would propose? I'm just confused about where we are in the process, so I know, yeah, so I can.
We don't have to bill yet.
still over them. We were in the house. They didn't mention. it. So
They didn't suspend rules.
It comes to us tonight after they adjourn automatically. If they don't message it soon.
So our.
but the process wise, right, so I wasn't necessarily, I thought we would end up going to kind of different concept. Just go through these to understand them, not necessarily vote each piece, although we could straw pull our way through what the conversation is.
So this has kind of been decided,
No, it's not constrained, it's just that, that thing, if you have more things, or you think of something, or there was something. What I didn't want is, was trying to help us have something to look at.
yes,
Without implying that this is all we're looking at.
okay, but if it's something that we don't want versus something that we do want in there, how should we proceed there?
Yeah.
I would just say, I think our committees, we haven't had any time as a committee. We keep losing 9 to 10 AM as a committee. So I think we would wanna process these together, but then go back and have our own discussions.
Okay, that's all. So I will not raise any concerns that I had at this point. on the language, because we will have later opportunities to do that.
Not too many.
You might
Not too many.
Well, you might want
Comfortable.
to flag it.
Okay, yeah, exactly,
you're
yeah,
thinking.
then I would just say this first, I personally am uncomfortable with this very first one.
Okay.
And I don't feel comfortable, if you're looking for a vote on it in committee, I would be a no for including that first.
So we won't. And Senator, the other, sorry, we are making this up as we go,
Yeah.
because we don't usually have two committees working this at the same time with the same stuff. But we were thinking we'd go through as a group, and then each committee would have its own time to like buckle down and.
Whom do I look at this meeting? Who's chairing this meeting? Who do I read?
In his room.
Okay, so Senator McCormick.
To answer Senator White's question of earlier, where are we in the process? I would say we are very, very, very late in the process. And so the first thing I want to know is, are there any real significant changes in what's being proposed here from stuff that has already been agreed to?
Well, we went through this morning, that first cut at what the House and back, right? So I think, you know, there's substantial changes that the House is proposing. Out of all that in our report, or
I might be missing context if you all had another meeting where you like determined how you know. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay, so because I tried to flag things in the morning and then I further flagged them for Senator Gray, and that's what we're looking at now.
But the big changes then are the House changes we considered earlier. Anything that has been laid before us now. Is the,
yeah, but like the pendulum has swung,
Mhm.
and now they're Ron Himself proposing to swing it back on somebody.
Right.
We may have more things that we want.
Yeah,
We might not have.
It's all within the context of what we saw this morning and where it might give the housing community stakeholders plus my committee more comfort to just take a second look at some of those things.
And can I just level set where we are? So this morning I was here and you had the proposal that was it's 5.1 from the House, we don't have the official copy yet.
Yep.
Which amends the big document, your Senate proposal. You also have the section by section, and then this document that has Senator Ron Hinsdale's name on it. Is amending the 5.1 version of the
Okay.
House proposal.
Yeah.
And I do just wanna say procedurally, we're in a little bit of an unusual place because the bill is still physically in the House. And when it comes to the Senate, it likely will not actually be referred to a committee. And so an individual amendment is appropriate here, that you can add names, and then there will, that's how it played out in the House, where it's not referred to a committee because now we're in proposals of amendment, which were like, stages down the process, so.
Like it's. Two from energy and environment, one from ways and means, one from House.
General.
And their committees reviewed that amendment, because those were the committees of jurisdiction, and so. It's similar to what happening here, and so. So we may need to talk to your secretary when we get past this meeting about how to.
How to prepare.
Prepare, but right now, this is an individual amendment from Senator Ron Hinsdale that you are considering. But you don't have the bill yet, so it's probably not going to be on the floor today.
No.
So the question would be, rather than individual committees supporting it or taking individual committees, but whether or not we want to sign on to Senator Ron Hinsdale's amendment, is that the correct way to do that?
I don't think we have to make an affirmative decision one way or another
Yeah.
right now.
Okay.
Well, we'll be here for a while this evening, and this was in the spirit of getting language out there people can look at. If I can editorialize just a little bit more, some of the changes in the regulatory section, I understand, were made really late last night before they went to the floor. And thankfully, VNRC was there saying like, well, if you want to be fair to the housing folks, this is maybe what they would say.
Is it finance?
This was in environment and energy.
Oh, last night.
This was last
Yeah,
Oh,
before they went to
night.
the floor, so
Oh.
there was kind of a like, there's no one left here from the housing community. We don't know why they want this, let's just remove it kind of thing, so, we're just looking at something that there was no sort of like housing eyes on before to this morning.
So let's keep going. We will, I mean, there could be more than one amendment.
That's right.
That kind of thing.
We can always build.
But the goal is, no matter who we can find at what hour at night, that Senator Bray and I would think to agree. On what we could, like, I just can't find anybody half the time.
We are on the floor, we're on the floor
Yes.
all day.
We can call Ellen and become one.
It's true, I just freed up my afternoon, so I'm here. All right, let's get back.
Okay, number 2, second instance.
You wanna explain this?
Yeah.
Better if you start, or you want,
No, it would be great to explain more,
yeah.
because it seems modest.
So this is inserting the words municipal official after municipal staff. It's in section 27. Which is the tier 1B requirements. So the sentence that requires there be adequate municipal staff or contracted capacity, adding the phrase municipal official.
let me explain. Or,
I thought it was like,
Where's this headache come from? Like,
yes. This, you know, early in the session, we took testimony from a lot of small flood impacted areas who basically said, I'm like a retired architect who chairs the DRB and I'm managing all the grants and I'm doing thousands of hours of unpaid work. We heard that from Weston, we heard that from Londonderry. And what I didn't want to do is preclude small communities just because it's a volunteer who's doing the capacity work. So if they can have the capacity not from the paid staff person, that would also be taken into consideration, because a lot of these smaller communities are building that capacity through some wholly volunteer.
Yeah,
This is,
that's great.
okay, so this isn't coming out of the back and forth, this is sort of a catch. Based on you.
It was a like, I never liked the just staff capacity thing, but I can live with it if we can just recognize there's a lot of.
right, it would be helpful.
That's it.
These are.
And they're doing a lot of
Not,
that.
these, yeah. I hope it's not.
It is modest.
The next one is a little security blankie. Ellen can go back to this.
Sure, so the third instance of amendment is amending section 22. Oh, so this, oh yeah, so just so you know, I literally wrote this before we got here, so it hasn't been edited, so this will be renumbered, but section 22, which is the tier 3 rulemaking provision, it's adding language in the middle of the paragraph. After the words be added to the definition. Measures to ensure that no municipality or region is disproportionately impacted by tier 3 designation that would limit reasonable opportunities for tier 1 or tier 2 designations.
So I hope it's okay to say that one of the co-chairs of the Rural Caucus, the NRC, the RPCs, and the LCT today just gave us a sentence that I think just makes, it's our intent that, you know, something isn't in tier 3, there's an explanation. If a community feels like they're gonna be preserved in amber, we're trying to give them a little bit of comfort that we're not gonna do that to them, that's not our intent. This is just security for people in rural communities who worry about tier 3. And I've
Yeah.
heard the chair say over and over, we don't want them to worry about tier 3, we want them, and Senator Watson's very eloquent floor speech was everyone has an equal shot at tier 1, 2, and 3. And this is just, and I appreciate that stakeholder report on this.
Yeah.
It's also consistent with the many reassurances that just by virtue of being in tier 3 doesn't mean your active jurisdiction is triggered, just. That's how we think of this.
Okay.
With this language. I'm not trying to be difficult, I'm just gonna be thorough. With this language, how does tier 3 differ? Tier 2, tier 2. What we're saying is, there's active 50 jurisdiction unless. Oh, there isn't unless there is some. Environmentally significant values to be protected. What's the difference?
That's a good question. Was anyone in the room, sort of like in a professional planning community that can speak, well, how they think tier three will be defined, rolled out. and
Yeah, I can
reviewed.
give it a shot and I can explain if you want, like, I think this language
Well, the
is
short
fine.
version.
So. The tiers are all different, 1A and 1B is mapping. In tier two, we're gonna have a report and a study to come back to really evaluate. Significant changes if we feel they're necessary in tier two. And after all the debate that we had. We landed on tier three would be done by rule. And we gave some guidance in terms of defining critical resources, but said that the rule. Through a stakeholder process involving. A broad array of people is gonna basically determine what are the resources and what are the jurisdictional triggers. And so this doesn't change any of that, everything that has been debated and has been agreed to is the same. This is just saying. What was, really the intent is that tier three are critical resources of statewide significance, and they're not going to be. Covering, every inch of a town, and every town will have areas that should be eligible for 1A and 1B in growth. For housing in particular, but for commercial and industrial growth in 1A communities. And tier three is not intended to subsume that. And I don't think it ever would, and that was never the intent, because again, the existing language is critical resources of statewide significance, really. The cream of the crop, the best of the best, and that doesn't change at all by that, so.
So it's like intent.
I don't wanna be appear parochial here, but in fact, what I think of as a good example of what I'm thinking about happens to be in my jurisdiction. That is not.
It does.
I see it. Oh, you're here. I'm sorry. No, but you're not usually here. The area known informally as Chattaquay.
Well, yeah.
Which is an area surrounded by Barnard, Bridgewater, a little bit of Killington, Stockbridge. And it's that, if you look on the map, the state highways, there's a big loop, there's a big dark area there, okay? And it's as close, it's actually not wilderness because it was all logged at the time, but it's as close to wilderness as we have in our part of the state. Because it's second growth and it's been a long time in some, okay? People insist that there are wildcats there, and I mean, we know there are wildcats, mountain lions.
Or it didn't have wildcat, just meant like feral.
No.
No,
It's like,
they're definitely wildcats,
Yeah.
no, and a lot of people, the point being that is an area I would think would be
It's your first.
simply off limits to.
Yes.
That would,
Your legislative intent would be.
yeah, now, would
fixing that.
it be, or with this?
This
Yeah.
sounds like they would certainly be. Prime for the discussion, so those are the type of areas we're talking about, yes. The question then would be, like, how much of the area, what is the
Yeah.
mapping of the boundary, that's all in the rulemaking. To identify the resources and then map them, get really granular, because it's important to get granular, because it will determine jurisdiction.
Yeah.
So.
We'll have to make it case later, when you have all your free time, you're gonna be showing up and making sure that the regional planning commission maps it.
No, the towns with, but that is what's so important here, is the local, is founded in the towns, making choices of. But I think you're absolutely right, Chattaquay, which hits on 4 or 5 towns.
Yeah.
Absolutely is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, there's two things in here, I don't know what council would say there, disproportionate impact and reasonable opportunity, it seems like there's a fair amount of room for interpretation. No longer. So, I don't know.
That's the thing. Yeah, it's just giving people a little comfort that they won't be preserving ever. You can keep revoting.
Certainly Killington. No, none of the towns that embrace Shattuck are.
Nope.
Observed in that.
Right,
Yeah, and they would all have 1B, at least 1B and maybe 2. So,
Alright, wait, fine, let's go before we sleep, okay, onward, the next one.
and killings.
So the fourth and fifth instances of amendment work together. The fourth instance of amendment strikes out. It's one of the exemptions, one of the interim housing exemptions, the interim housing exemption of 50 units or fewer. And the houses version was for village areas. And this on page 2, you will see adds back in areas of the municipality that are within the urbanized area within 1 quarter mile of the trees.
Okay, so this is the travel.
All right, this is my beloved,
This
is her
Route
grant.
7.
This is
Charlie can speak to this is actually a really valuable opportunity for strip repair in Chittenden County. And there was concern over there, why is this just for Chittenden County? I'm not trying to do anything to the rest of the state until
Rutland,
we experiment with this and see what happens on major bus routes.
Well,
Charlie, I didn't know.
Rutland,
Mr. Baker.
I think the other thing was really trying to capture existing settlement areas in these interim exemptions, which the 4 mile from villages, the half mile from downtowns, is really trying to capture existing settlement areas, which worked really well across the whole state, except for our Chittenden County urbanized area, which is more than half a mile from downtown Burlington. And so we were really just trying to, I think, there's also a measure of fairness, capture the existing settlement areas. Without this, with just the downtown and village areas, we do have downtown village areas within that urbanized area. It captures about a third of our housing units. This would capture.
Right, just to be sure, because when I looked and there was a Burlington has like growth centers, neighborhood development areas, a new town center out in South Burlington.
That's right.
Designated downtown. By the time when I started drawing circles around all those things, most of Burlington seemed to disappear into the circle.
It's everything right outside. It's
Uh,
from Shelburne.
And then you
the-
then you could Colchester, you're doing the.
All due respect, Mr. Chair, I probably want to like look at some of your diameters that you were using seemed larger than a half and quarter mile. So I didn't really address that with you, but I did send an alternate map showing what it looked like for my GIS analysis. So it leaves up New North End of Burlington, it certainly leaves out big parts of South Burlington, Williston, Route 7, Route 2. Where we have existing settlements, so this is not, I think, not trying to do anything else that we're not trying to do in the rest of the state, which was allow this interim exemption to apply to the existing settlement areas.
And it's housing, it's not.
And only for housing,
Other
and this is only still capturing, this is not the entirety, it's like 2/3 of our housing units. Get included in this geography, so it's still, to me, less than what we're doing in other parts of the state.
Very much.
and would also benefit Rutland, I know.
Not yet,
Get
not yet.
all the attention, but actually Rutland, our strip south of Rutland 7 would be an important opportunity.
Except for the fact,
It's not.
except for the fact that Rutland Town does not have public bus, so like subdivision regulations.
Okay.
So,
Oh, I-
so there's other criteria too, right?
Right,
So,
Rutland town does not have zoning, we gotta work on that.
yeah, that's another
And
time.
if, as people go back and discuss this, I mean, what, if you drive a mile in my park to the state housing, there are a lot of motels, housing developments, people waiting at bus stops. There is some housing being built, it's multi, what's the word I'm looking for, multi-use, multi-purpose, multi-family.
Mixed use.
Just mixed use, people are filling in these one-story Verizon stores and bank areas with restaurants and housing above it and keeping it along the major transportation corridors where they no longer need a vehicle to get everywhere. I think that's exactly what we're seeking in these already paved over areas.
This is just restoring language that we had.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, this is restoring language we
Well,
have, and
I just wanna make sure it was like it. I get it, the concept being restored, I didn't know if any of the words.
may I just add, I have an aspirational note that this might inspire Rutland to actually get zoning, because then it has.
So, if we want to go back to be clear, that we're talking about this urbanized area is not Rutland.
Right.
So urbanized area is the part of Chittenden County, just to be clear. The
But
other
if
aspects of
it's-
this bill might,
Yeah,
urbanized area
only-
is just Chittenden County.
Inspire the future.
Well, aren't there,
No, the,
Third-
That's right, I remember.
50,000 residents.
Yeah, I remember,
but I thought urbanized areas were like 13 of them, and they.
There is one urbanized area.
and that is
Really?
Oh, this
They have a
house.
list these having urbanized areas.
But I recall,
Yeah, there was a definition, no.
Yeah,
change.
pretty limited.
definition of urbanized areas, more than 50,000, it's only one of those areas.
Yeah, there.
What are we doing to urbanize areas? We're allowing
Housing,
housing
On
along,
transit route.
not just.
A quarter mile from there.
This is the same language you voted on.
Yeah, no,
But we did go about it right moments before, moment after it was introduced to the committee, so.
How dare you forget?
I am okay with this actually, this, okay.
Alright, let's keep going.
So we're gonna- Develop downtown area, village areas, concentrations, and try to preserve the green landscape outside that. But of course, there are state highways through the green landscape, and they have been prone to what we call sprawl. And what we're saying here, if I'm hearing it correctly, is where there is already sprawl. We're gonna live, well, or improve it.
And it's
But-
all along transportation corridors, so it's adding housing in between these commercial sites. That make them a little more vibrant and keep people from needing a car.
Or using our commercial opportunity, develop them into housing.
If there were more than one of these, I'd be concerned. I'm concerned about one.
Let's
but-
experiment with that.
Yeah,
I think the intention is that there will.
But it's a pilot sort of.
Well, I would say originally I wanted some designation for transit corridors, because Putney Road, Berry Montpelier Road, I mean, I think we can tell the places where they could use some housing, you know, and there's buses running along them. But if the experiment fails in Chittenden County, it goes no further. The planners were excited to see how this worked when I spoke to the planning association. They felt like that was missing, are these places they want to repair sprawl and actually create beautiful housing density where no one needs a car.
okay.
And that'd be nice.
As long as,
Perfect.
because that's the anti-sprawl.
Yeah,
Walkability,
Mhm.
so if this is creating more walkability in places, I am pro. But I just wanna make sure that we all know that public transportation is very underfunded. And that I'm concerned that these conversations aren't also happening in conversation with that.
Mhm.
So I'm okay with this as it is. But I hope we can come back in future years and investigate kind of the connection between these things and how developers could be a part of that conversation. Because it doesn't feel like there's a lot of leverage to be able to have that conversation when housing is being built.
Mm.
And this felt like a place where they could have that conversation, but I'm concerned that we're taking away some of our leverage. But I hope that we aren't doing that.
We had some conversation about transit amenities and side snags on that.
This is.
Well, I suppose the other odd way to look at it, if you start having more and more housing, it makes public transportation more and more viable, because you have a rider tax.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the developer should put a bus, you know, like it's all the stuff that you
I'm
can't.
there,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so remember.
There are naming opportunities on this bus.
Sorry, no, I just wanna pause quickly, because so as I mentioned, I wrote this moments before you saw it, so. I just wanna point out that I merged the language from the House and the Senate, and so. On page 1 in this amendment, this language says July 1, 2027. That House's proposal on this section was 2027, this says 2028, so the House's proposal. Is 2027,
So we should change,
I was not trying to sneak that past.
yeah, so that's my typo.
although we would like to.
Perhaps next year when we do that, yeah.
I know.
Yeah,
We can always extend it next.
so we're gonna do it again with a working car, that with a comic.
So, fifth instance,
The fifth instance is just putting back the definition of transit route.
okay,
So the sixth instance of amendment is new language being added in section 58. Section 58, the version that
comes
you,
from any someplace particular, like, has this never been in a bill?
correct,
Well, but it comes from compromising on the 180 days for a decision.
yes,
And changing it to 120 days until they schedule a hearing.
yeah, so I wanna make sure that we get the language on this correct. So it says within 180 days of an application being deemed complete. The appropriate municipal panel shall schedule a hearing on the application. So I do just wanna make sure,
So that says 120.
I'm sorry. It says 120, that's the correct record. So
In the event.
for my own before you, the version that you passed is completely different. So this is brand new language that you haven't considered before, and so I just wrote it, so. Does it capture what you were trying to do?
Yes, and after we pass the 180 days, there has to be a hearing. there was a lot of concern raised that on the developer side or the municipal side, they might not be ready to make a decision, and so they would make a hasty decision. But this says, you know, in good faith, after 3 months, you have to like respond and get something on the calendar. And then once they have that hearing, they have 45 days in existing statute to issue a decision. But this is that like, you can't just keep moving this on the agenda.
Right,
And never, and you know, wait 6 months to even respond.
which keeps it too
Can you
much.
just orient me? So this is municipal.
Yes.
And so
Moved on again.
what we had done is we had. What was the house? So the house's position was that they wanted it to be done within 180 days.
They struck
They
our
struck
whole
it.
piece here. They
Okay,
struck a lot of our municipal section.
so they,
This,
so
so past 180 days.
okay, I just want, so the house's position was 45 days. No, I need to be reoriented, so. We are suggesting 120 days in here, which is smaller than 180 days.
But it's a different decision.
Oh, okay, so can you explain what the different decision is?
So we.
Sure, so the Senate passed a version of language that said the municipal panel had to decide on the permit within 180 days of the application being submitted.
Okay, versus complete.
No,
Oh, okay,
that was still there. Currently in statute, which is what the House is proposing to go back to, is that the municipal plan has to make a decision on the permit itself within 45 days from the hearing.
Right.
It's a different start date, so in statute right now, after the close of the hearing, they have to issue a decision within 45 days. Your version had been 180 days, start to finish.
okay,
That, the statute currently is finish a hearing to get the permit. So this is now a different proposal, which is from when it's filed, schedule a hearing with 105 days.
Okay.
Mr. Brady's here, he is,
No one's seen this.
on behalf of municipalities, you mean, anything you wanna register with the committees? Sure, setting a different shot clock on towns all over the state.
yeah,
I think the idea of 120 days from the time of an application being complete to the time of still holding a hearing should not be a problem.
And it's not even holding a hearing schedule.
I don't think that would be a problem. Of course, generally municipalities don't enjoy being told what to do and how to do it, but I don't think this is a logistical problem.
okay,
And 45 days is critical.
okay.
So I'm just gonna say to the universe, I'm wondering if the word schedule is the wrong word. I'm wondering if it should be hold. Well, because it sounds like you want them to take an action and put it on a calendar, not actually hold the hearing.
That's right.
Okay, so
I feel like it's a very soft.
I know, well, and so
And so,
I
yeah,
feel like this
schedule
could be, I feel like this could be read two ways.
Yeah,
Oh,
And so I,
schedule, like make it happen.
yes,
Yeah.
so I
Scheduled for many.
am open, and my house has it slightly clearer, grade.
oh, that's.
She'll confirm the timing. On a future hearing.
Schedule an initial.
Schedule and hearing?
Schedule and hold an initial hearing.
Set the date of,
She doesn't want it to be pulled at the hearing.
Yeah, that's not my,
is it, how
Doesn't work for security. That's kind of where I'm.
Set the date of,
Enough
notice more.
What?
but then.
We have to be advertised, right, you know.
Show notice and warn.
But then they
Set a
have,
date.
but once you
You know
warn
that
it,
it's a
once
set
you
date.
warn it, it's within a few days, right? It's in either 7 or 14 days,
I believe you have to give at least 15 days,
15 days.
I believe, but I have not freshened up on that.
If you're scheduling it, you're also planning to hold it, so.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, but you could schedule for months out.
That's, well, that was my
No, that's,
question.
it comes
That's
to
your
15 days.
Well, that's,
Only,
that's the distinction I'm trying to make too.
I like the middle ground of like, it would be nice if they gave them a reasonable date. Doesn't sound like. That's a
That is not
Okay.
onerous burden.
Okay. I like it.
Thank you, so thanks. So what are we settling on?
we're,
Notice of warn
we're,
a hearing. And then finally, the seventh instance of amendment. Your version of the bill sent over for municipal appeals. The option that any 25 persons who are voters, residents, or other property owners. The House deleted that because they did spend a lot of time last year on the 10. They are comfortable. Bless you, this language goes back to 20.
Wow, man.
It is a compromise.
Wow, I
I
had
was 17, but
I came one first.
Right. 20, it's not-
Go to 20. Let's go 20.
20.
It says 25, 10, now we have 20.
Yeah.
Fine.
That's where we're at.
Okay,
Okay.
alright, so I think now that we've been through, how about a quick tour back through, so, the first one.
You're right, perfectly timed.
I think we have agreed to all of them, and all no. So how about we do a review, so how about we do from the top down and rather than have a debate about them, just see where we are. So, the first one on jail, we have an option, I think there was still some.
It's the only one.
Okay, so I'm gonna put a flag on that as maybe not resolved, okay, not resolved. Second one was just staffing change, I thought we all said yes, yes. So there's that. Third was the softening on tiers for softening. I think everyone says yes.
No, I would put everything out, it's the same. Okay, fine, fine.
I'm worried about.
The,
I guess I'm hearing from the people I tend to agree with, who are happy with it.
alright, then the next one was. Oh, this is, the one that established transit routes. Fifth goes with it.
No, I'm not on the establishment.
Yeah,
I like.
you had a comment.
Here's my thought, I understand what's being offered, what's suggested. We get a transit area that's already been developed. Okay. So you're not worrying about sprawl because it's already happened.
Correct.
And the idea is make the most of it, and then you want within range of it, so you have settlement along it, as long as you have good mass transit.
Yes.
Okay,
Mass base.
someone please explain to me how that differs. from Long Island, because I would describe Long Island exactly that way. In particular, I can actually name particular routes that Merritt Road. No, that's a Connecticut. But also.
I don't think I've been to Long Island, so.
No, but
Imagine.
I don't have to limit myself, though, it's not for state, that's fine, as long as you stay on the road.
Yes. But it's beautiful.
Get out of your car, well, you just walk long enough to, if you're a gentleman, to take a leak, and you're gonna be in the sun.
It's always
You're gonna be in
back.
the burbs, you're gonna be in dense,
Yes. There's a new criteria.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is, I know this, all right, but the point is, I think the American suburbs, what you're talking about is Los Angeles. You're talking about New Jersey, you're talking about, not all of them, part of Connecticut, you get into the Avon Valley and it's pretty risky. But, you get into the Bridgeport area, you're talking.
So can I say something, and Los Angeles I can do,
Okay,
Long Island haven't been. But when the places we were talking about look like strip mall areas of Los Angeles. They have one-story buildings, strip malls, and I will give you a perfect example from my commute. Champlain Lane's bowling alley. Staple of the community, went out of business, was going to be a lot of units of housing. The neighbors fought it and fought it and fought it, but what they couldn't fight is to continue the same commercial use under Act 250, so it became a car wash. That's what's happening all along this area, is it continues to be one-story buildings because nobody wants more traffic at the end of their road, nobody wants more people that might live in large multifamily properties. So they fight it until it just has another paved, useless commercial not useless, I love the car wash people. But
yeah.
it doesn't become something more vibrant. The only thing they can do is replace it with some other commercial use, like a tire place. that gets enough business to make it worthwhile.
Well, repurposing a defunct business with discuss housing.
We are talking about all the
That's
dealerships.
another bill.
Yeah, I mean,
We were talking about a graffiti covered Pizza Hut, if I was.
So,
no, but we're just, the point, you're also talking how far back from the road can you
Quarter of a
A
mile.
quarter of a mile,
Quarter of a mile,
walkable distance.
walkable distance for a fee.
for bus.
And only in
Okay,
these
that's
areas.
more like stuff.
Alright, Mr. Sheep, then Mr. Baker.
Yeah, I'd like to maybe put it in the context of other state policies. Several years ago, the legislature amended Action 50 to include a new criteria, 9L. And what that is intended to do is where you have existing strip development to encourage development patterns that build up, that are multi-use, that are pedestrian oriented. And it also is intended to say where you don't have strip development, don't extend that pattern. It hasn't really worked very well. The criteria hasn't been applied as well as we would like, but I do think that allowing this type of development in this transit corridor is very consistent with that policy of redeveloping these lighted strip areas, I should say lighted strip areas.
So there.
And in the hopes of also preventing them from extending the length of the highway. That was the goal of 9L. And this is not.
It could be fulfilled
That is my
like
goal.
this.
Mr. Baker.
And I want to concur with everything that was just said, and also just kind of build on this notion of, there's absolutely no intent about expanding the strip. This is part of the reason to pick the urbanized boundary, to say there's a boundary here in which we're not trying to go beyond, we're trying to infill, redevelop. Yeah, which is height and provide more passengers for the bus routes. And get houses in the right places, where we have transit service, not encourage them to go out into Sprawlville. So this is actually an effort to reduce that sprawl that the good senator brought up from Long Island, so. And having worked some of those places, I think this is an effective strategy to focus inward, not outward.
Okay, so.
Come see my graffiti covered pizza.
Sounds like we're good there. We'll see new language on the 6th amendment, whether set a date, notice be warned, whatever it might be.
We said no to.
And then, we're adhering to 20, we're making another run at it, 20
Okay.
on page 4. And that's it, other than, so now that we freed up all that thinking, maybe we can resolve the JO question in the first
Yeah.
instance of the amendment.
I'm open to other possibilities, but. I wish Senator Harrison was here. She's been really tracking like who she feels gets stuck or shies away from the jurisdictional opinion process. And how it can slow someone down who otherwise has a lot of momentum in their community to build a project. And I want our exemptions to work. If they're lasting 2 years. My math isn't great right now. I want them to work. And I don't want them to get stuck on procedural issues.
So, but okay, can I just understand where we are with this conversation, because we've had a lot of back and forth. And I think my value set is we're making a lot of changes. We're making a significant amount of changes. There are a lot of exemptions in here. It seems like a developer in your best interest would get a jurisdictional opinion. Because if they are concerned that they might not have. They might have a challenge, or there might be some issues. So if that developer is not, I think the riskiest situation we're in is I think it's actually gonna hurt the developers. Like I don't see this as such a negative for them, and I see it as a better opportunity.
It hasn't played out that way. I can come up with examples, but I just wonder if anybody around the room has another approach that we might use, because before we had said they have to issue an opinion in 30 days.
But do you have now the ability so if you don't get a jurisdictional opinion, if I'm someone who does have concerns, where I say, actually, I do think this is not what you should be doing, whether it's near my house or I'm on the planning commission or whatever, wherever we are in the process. If there's no jurisdictional opinion,
They have the right to request a jurisdictional opinion.
They have the right to.
Anyone has the right to request a jurisdictional opinion. Someone sees someone put a sign on a fence that says we're building butcher properties.
But what if that jurisdictional opinion says, actually, no, you did it wrong? We don't, aren't we risking that there will be developers who are going to be putting things in places that we don't necessarily. They don't follow
They
the
don't
process.
qualify for the exemption.
They don't qualify for the exemption, now we're in a position where the developer, we're basically hoping they do it. And then, my concern is people will not be getting the jurisdictional opinions. They will in fact potentially not be in a situation where the interpretation of the law would allow them to be there. You're in the process of that person has gotten far enough along, and it's going to be very hard to pull back. And so I'm worried that that puts us in a position where communities who might still be uncertain as this all rolls out are actually getting housing where they, through changing process, don't actually have the ability to properly.
Because these are exemptions, I want the process to go fast. I want us to have housing sooner than later. So I'm open to other possibilities.
How long does it take for a JO typically?
I was just looking, I think the NRB has statistics on this, I'm not. Finding them quickly.
We said 30 days at one.
Well, didn't we have that example from Putney where the JO is being challenged and
That's
that,
appealed.
if the JO itself is being appealed and is holding up. A housing cost.
25 unit project for a year and a half.
So, I mean, like two things, there's one, I think our mantra was a timely ruling on the merits.
Yes.
And we couldn't figure out a way to ensure a timely ruling on the merits,
Okay.
whether it was to issue the JO to begin with, or to resolve an appeal on that JO. And that's where, then the clock ran out, really, that's when we stopped. Ms. Sullivan, you've had your hand up.
No, that was just, this pretty much what was covered here, but I think when this was discussed last week or however long ago it's been since we were talking about this before. That it was the question of what to do about an appeal became such an unknown that's the committee talks about making it a may versus a shall, because anyone who is questioning the JO anyone who's questioning development can ask for a JO. And and the other piece is that the committee or the stakeholder group that the legislature in this bill is tasking with the study of appeals. Part of that task is to study how to come back with a recommendation of what to do about JOs and appeals, to try and find a resolution on this piece.
Yeah, because to everyone's point, I mean, the thing I can imagine almost never happening is someone builds a project, didn't qualify. Doesn't the government comes from Act 250, they go ahead and they start construction. I've hardly ever seen anything partially constructed or constructed, deconstructed, like, oh, you weren't supposed to be here, take it down. We don't usually do that, and so it does leave a bad taste in some people's mouth that like projects, guys.
Right, and at the same time,
Ignoring or
projects
abusing.
held up by this.
Yeah, so it's.
Months that are affordable housing, so it's the affordable housing folks would still have to get a JO, but they're the ones.
Yeah, so,
that
yeah,
come
and
to
so
us
why-
with the scenario of like, it can stop really good projects from happening in the 2 years that we.
Yeah, but
it's successful.
EHCB has said that they have concerns about this.
Mr. Tucker.
Thank you. Peter Tucker, Vermont Association of Realtors. So, the way I've kind of looked at this is that, somebody who is, maybe greater than 10 units, but let's say it's a village and less than 50 units, shouldn't have to apply for Act 250 because they're exempt from Act 250. The other thing, we're shortening this period of time and, getting a jurisdictional opinion. I mean, I still think the period is far too short for the interim exemptions because, by the time you identify a property, come up with a plan, go through municipal planning and all the agency permits that you're gonna need, we're 27 probably easily, so, the limited period of time, this adds another layer. And quite honestly, the agency permits are appealable, the municipal permit is gonna be appealable. And if you have problems, I think you're gonna find out at the municipal level,
Mhm.
right? Like if
Yeah.
somebody's really opposed to it, that's where they're gonna come up and see it. But because the project itself, let's say it's 14 or 15 units, doesn't hit the Act 250 threshold. Why does it need an Act 250 permit, basically? And JOs are appealable, and that's just adds another layer of risk. So and then that developer may said, if I've got to get a JO, it's not worth it because I can get appealed on that and just get tied up. So that's how it fits in, especially in the.
Well,
Okay.
the whole thing
So
doesn't
why
quite
it's so hard?
make sense. In that, I mean, everything you said makes sense,
Yeah,
except for someone who doesn't like it.
yeah,
And
exactly.
all for the JO, so it feels a little like, wishful thinking. But
Yeah,
the other hand, we also were
you're
at
gonna notice it.
27. So maybe that is a way to look at it. It's like, okay, we're silent on that. We'll let the real world tell us how it works.
Mhm.
We have 2027 and there's a phase, though it's not like a experiment. Just
Pretty short, but
So are people okay with? I know it's like an active phase. It is an
It
experiment.
really is. I have a lot of hesitation for this, and this is a very, yes, I have a lot of hesitation, but I'm willing to trust that it is I have nervousness, but I am comfortable
Okay,
with
but this,
as it is proposed,
Well,
and I can't think of a better thing. Like, there's no meeting,
Oh,
in the middle.
absolutely, yeah,
There's like
Yeah.
no meeting in the middle on this, we either do it or we don't, and I guess.
we're looking at the best minds around the room.
okay, so we have on all these things.
Well, so
What I
this
wrote-
last thing.
Yeah.
Is it's a deadline on the jurisdiction. That's what we're looking at.
That you, such a thing to codify legally that you qualify to be exempt from Act 250 under the fees in residential.
So it's a prima facie. Thing. It's settled already going in.
Yes.
Well, especially, but we were saying that when you start showing half mile boundaries and stuff, and parcels are now intersected by lines, and it has to be at least 51% in the lot, in the boundary area. It's not impossible to imagine people maybe not quite knowing what they're doing, and you might want to say, oh, a JO would be helpful to make sure we started my project where I should be, but it's fine, I mean. They're flexible.
I'm fine with all of these actually, thank you, because while we were on the floor, we're doing this, and that's great, we all had to be both those places, so I guess we were on the floor for you. And I couldn't vote twice on several things. So I'm fine with these, I think these are. I think these are good, and I just wonder if there's some additional ones you have been thinking about that are
I
not.
think when, because of running personally, the running around and hearing other bills and that stuff meant I didn't sit down the way my.
That location is laser focused.
But Senator White, to your point, like you said, wait, is this the only thing? And I would say, no, but I think it
Okay.
would be, we're not gonna get that built till tomorrow.
Okay, so we got.
So let's think about
Mhm.
next, like, if people wanna sleep on it, think of things.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Get language drafted, we should plan to reconvene in the morning.
So you can get a jurisdiction opinion if you choose to ask. Right.
Yes.
Or if someone wants one for a project you were doing. Any member.
Anybody,
The concerned citizens will.
Concerned citizen or developer, either way, but no one's obliged. Okay, so I had tentatively asked to block out 9 o'clock tomorrow. I don't know how that works for the two committees, like, or to.
We can figure it out.
Sit down
Fine,
again,
yeah.
and I think that would be
Yeah,
that might well be our final round at this.
tomorrow is Friday.
Tomorrow is Friday. Okay, so.
so we're gonna get this probably about 8-ish tonight.
Something like that. Depends on when they're done.
Okay, so last night, I sent out what I got, and I think it turned out to be quite.
That was very helpful.
So how about this, I'll do the same thing again, as soon as I have the final language, is it gonna be any different than this? Do you know?
No, they already voted.
Okay, so this is locked and done, okay, I didn't know.
It's locked for the moment.
From the house.
Right, so everyone has what they need, and we have your section by section, and we have the full bill that we were recommending against. So, and if we meet again at nine for an hour, oh, we never finished with Mr. Gray. Okay. Where is
So we were keeping down.
or could we get, if we have a little time for floors?
We have a half an hour.
I didn't look at any changes I needed in John's section.
Okay,
But the appropriations overlap with finances concerns about
okay.
the finance
pieces,
pieces, so.
Finally, some down, a lot of concerns.
Yeah, if he could come, that'd be great, while we're still here, we're not.
That would be great.
Next.
We could do a 7-minute stretch.
Or until, yeah, if he comes now, we could do that, and then have a break, and then.
Yeah.
Can we take it quick break?
And therefore, running around. Yeah. All day.
Yeah, you can go over.
Yeah. Yeah, whatever that's.
We're still live.
I was out there.
I did,